All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 7th, 2022 regular council meeting. And Judy, if you could call the roll, that would be awesome.
Yes, Housh.
I'm here.
Stokes.
Here.
McQueen.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
DeVore Leonard.
Here.
Also present is Village Manager Josue Samaran, Public Works Director Johnny Burns, Chief of Police Paige Burge, and Village Solicitor Amy Blankenship.
All right, so I think we've got a variety of announcements, and I think I'll start with Mary Ann's like hot off the presses from the township meeting, and so I thought maybe you could just kind of give us an update on what happened over there.
Sure, yeah. So I attended the Miami Township trustee meeting that was primarily devoted to citizens' comments on Senate Bill 52, which would allow, I guess it's counties and/or townships to ban large-scale solar facilities, 50 megawatts or bigger. So they were taking comments, and I had to leave half hour early, but I think all the comments had been made. What I was most impressed with was there were people who wanted the ban, there were people who didn't want the ban, there were people in the middle. But a lot of information came out. People were very respectful. People listened. So I think that was my sense, and I'm very hopeful that the township will take everything that they heard and take some time to maybe get a team of people together, whatever, because that's the critical next step, what they do after they hear the comments. But I just was very impressed with the meeting and what people had to say, and it was so rich, and I think it was a great example of local democracy. So that's one thing. Then I wanted to announce something that is in the council packet, the Village Meet and Greet, which is November 16th from 5:30 to 7:30 in rooms A and B. All council members are invited, all village staff, really anyone who has been associated with the mediation program or has interest in using it. And you will get to meet the new coordinator, Diane Diller, who is so excited to be in her role and has already created some office space in the village for files and meeting people and things like that. The other thing that's in the council packet that I'm also excited about is the announcement for the Climate Action Sustainability Planning Coordinator, and to be hired for 2023, and encourage people who are interested. Let's see, it's posted, I think, on the village Facebook page, Agraria. I don't know if it's gotten into the paper or not, but it's contact Agraria if you're interested in that. So all three of those things, really great.
All right, thanks, Mary Ann. Yeah, I happened to be here when Diane was putting out, little mini flyers, and she was so excited. She was like, where are some good spots to let people know? So it's great. All right, Josue, I know you've got some announcements.
Yes, thank you, Brian. I want to first congratulate the high school soccer team for winning their first regional title championship. So that happened this Saturday. So congratulations to the high school team. And also, there's an upcoming game, the state semifinal. That is happening this Wednesday at 7 p.m. So.
Yep, in Marysville.
In Marysville.
And by the way, don't be fooled to think that you can watch it online. I heard that was...
I learned the hard way. One,
yes.
I signed up for 2 subscriptions. One of them turned out to be a legit, sponsored by the school sports network. The other one, not so true. And so I'm waiting for my new credit card to arrive.
Okay, anything else?
No.
All right.
We have the flour and sugar distributions coming up during the week of the 21st. So we just want to put it out there because you'll see some notices from our team asking folks, anyone that wants to sign up, how to contact us. Council will have a specific resolution on this later in the agenda, but I know that some viewers tune in for the announcements.
All right, thanks a lot. Thank you. Any other announcements from council members? All right, well, I have a few. Okay, so first of all, sorry if I made a noise there, Lacey. This Friday is Veterans Day, and that is an important holiday for the village and for the country. One of the things I wanted to mention that I was reminded is that we are members of the Miami Valley Military Affairs Association. That membership is $35 a year, and it kind of reminded me of two things. One is, I think it's great that we support that, and Judy, as you know about events and you want to share that with council members, that's great. But it also reminds me we probably should regularly review our memberships and make sure that we're all on board with that. But this is an organization that we've been a part of for as long as I've been on council. I also wanted to say thanks to the crew for Halloween. It was great, despite a little bit of rain. I know we had a ton of kids, it was super fun. We supported the bonfires. I think we learned that supplying wood and maybe less buns were two of the things. Yeah, we've got plenty of hot dogs, but maybe too many buns. But anyway, so we're gonna keep working on that. But that was really fun. And I also wanted to mention another thing that's happening on Wednesday is our next budget session. We're going to be doing that from 5 to 7. So right at 7 o'clock, we're going to be lighting a candle and celebrating for the soccer team to get to states and our state finals. But we've got a 2-hour session then. And so actually, we'll also make sure if you want to be remote from Marysville that you can be there for the game. So this way I heard you might want to be there. So
yes.
Yeah.
Hoping to get out of here at 7 and get there to watch the last 15 minutes. So I'll be there.
I got to say, no remote participation, and it's not feasible with everyone on their laptops and stuff on the screen and all the backing and forthing. We cannot do a hybrid. So Josue, you're stuck. Sorry.
Okay.
I am.
All right. Well, I tried. And the last thing is, obviously, tomorrow is Election Day. I know many of you have early voted. I just want to highlight, no matter how any of us feel, the number one thing is we have to vote. We have to keep voting. And yeah. So we have the same polling station as always, AUM, and so basically they're there all day. And Marianne, did you want to say something? Okay. So, yep. Vote like your life depends on it. And with that, we'll move into the consent agenda. All right, so first up, I guess we'll pull each item as we usually do. So first up are the minutes of October 17th from our regular meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Second are minutes from our first work session on October 27th. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And next are the credit card statements from October. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And actually, any questions on the credit card statements?
I did mention to Judy about reformatting, so we can see
Right.
the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Change it to, the landscape. Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. So, review of the agenda. Anything we need to add, modify, or remove?
Yeah, so I'd like to have some time for the Ellis Pond update and make sure we're online for what we hope is going to happen during the manager's report.
Great. Yeah, I like adding that to the manager's report. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Then I think Kevin Stokes, reviewing the petitions and communications.
Well, thank you, Brian, and good evening, everyone. The clerk has and will receive several communications from Greene County Public Health Department. One advising that bivalent boosters, COVID boosters, are available. I've had mine. Get yours. There's another communication from Greene County Public Health regarding a community health survey. They will be sending out or otherwise contacting random members of the community for that survey. Another communication from Greene County Health advising that our area COVID transmission has increased to medium, status of medium. Also, Greene County Health is advising that COVID test kits are available. Also, we are being advised by Greene County Health that respiratory illnesses are on the rise, and their communication suggests some things you can look out for to tell the difference between RSV, flu, and COVID so that you can respond appropriately. We've got a letter in the packet from Chief Burge recognizing Officer Harris for a job well done. We've also got a letter from Judith Hempfling regarding our sidewalk policy. Jane Presutti has a letter thanking the community outreach officer Randolph, Florence Randolph, on the work that she did in working with a family that was in crisis. Brian Housh forwarded a letter regarding an opinion on the issue 2 on the ballot. Brian also offered a letter of his own discussing issue 2. And Gyamfi Gymerah has a letter in support of our rating of the Iranian women's movement. And that is all I have at this moment for petitions and communications.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're going to move into legislation, and first up is the second reading of Ordinance 2022-36. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So I've been looking at our charter, and I'm going to add something new because the charter references that we can vote to not read something in full. And I think we're going to start doing that because it implies that on the second reading, we should read it in full. So I'm going to also ask for a motion to not read this resolution in full.
I move.
Second. Sorry.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. So we're going to open the public hearing, and where do we start? Do you want to start, Josue?
I'm sorry, remind me, Brian, we're reading the...
Yeah, this is the busking situation. Yes.
So can I just ask a question? I got 2022-35 in one place, but I think it's
36.
It is 36, and it's because I scrambled it over from one packet to the other. Everything else is correct. I have it correct.
Oh, so it should be
Everywhere
35?
where you're seeing it. No, it is 36.
Okay, 36.
all right.
All right.
Thank you.
Brian, I think there's, let me start off that there have been some sensitivity around this particular ordinance. From my perspective, there was a request for council to consider amplification of music in the downtown area. It's not a new issue. I understand it's been an ongoing issue. I think in this package you'll see petitions from previous years on this issue. So I saw this piece of legislation as council being responsive to concerns that have been raised in the community, responsive to recommendations that have been made by a commission report. I think this was one specific recommendation in a report. So I see this as council sticking to the timelines of being responsive to recommendations and requests from citizens. So this particular ordinance is set to specifically address the amplification issue.
All right. Thanks, Josue. And I will say, I also, being part of agenda planning, this was not something that I think council asked the Public Arts and Culture Commission to look at, but I'm glad that they did, and I agree that we wanted to respond to those recommendations and address it, and I saw Kevin nod. I mean, that was kind of, Judy reminded us, we had these recommendations, we should, look at it from council's purview. So, Jessica, I saw you had your hand up. Was there?
I did. I just wanted some clarification.
Come on up.
If you're not reading the ordinance in full, what does that mean, and what part are you not reading?
Oh, it just means like normally we just bring it in, and but I have been reading the charter today, and I saw that there was a comment that we should vote if we're not going to read it in full. So it doesn't have any impact. It's no major change other than following a protocol. But it basically saves us time from not reading 5 pages of an ordinance. So, I mean, we could always read ordinances in full, but we've seen this, it's published and whatnot. But actually, I realized to follow our charter, we should either read it in full on the second read or make a vote that we don't need to read it in full.
Okay,
But it doesn't change.
Eliminating the title piece.
Yeah, right, yeah. So it was something that, for the 9 years I've been on council, we've never recognized that, and but from now on, we'll either vote to read it in full or not. But it doesn't change anything about what's there. Yeah, thank you.
Brian, just for clarification, and Judy, maybe go in on this. If we are reading an ordinance in full, would that also include any attachments or? Okay. So just the written ordinance. Okay.
Right. But this is no the ordinance is what we looked at last time and everything else. So I think I'm just going to open the public hearing. I'd like to hear comments from the public and then from council, and then we'll go from there.
Brian, we're having some technical issues on our side. If I could have 30 seconds to switch the video and audio feeds so that we can, are you taking questions from the Zoom room?
Sure.
Okay, so then if I could have 30 seconds to make a quick swap of video and audio, would be great.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to cut out the audio feed for no more than 15 seconds.
And Judy, did those folks ask you to speak on Zoom?
Well, I don't think they had the chance, but somebody's got a hand up and...
Okay, but normally that's the protocol, but yeah.
So,
If you tell me otherwise, I can stop what I'm doing and go back to...
Should we read music? No pressure.
are you responding?
So now you can throw it back over there.
Okay. So you did what you needed to do?
Where's that?
And those way, I did get a comment from someone saying that there was lots of echo in the council video, but that was 13 minutes ago.
Should be up there.
Okay, so we got what we need?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess, since we are back online, I want to remind folks that the protocol, if you do want to make comments via Zoom, is that you let our council clerk know that, and that is highlighted on our agendas. All right, so the public hearing has been opened. Do we have any folks in the audience that would like to comment? All right, come on up. All right, just make sure to let us know your name.
My name's Will Cook. I'm a villager, downtown resident, and I'm a busker. Haven't busked much in the past couple of years because of COVID, but I used to play quite a lot. Essentially, I think that this whole busking resolution regulation is a waste of time and has been. It's not productive. It's an issue, or was an issue maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but it's not an issue anymore. There's only a handful of people that busk in the town. There's maybe, I don't know, I can think of 3 to 5 people that busk regularly. I just don't see why this is an issue, or why that this is something that needs to be legislated and enforced by police and regulated. I think that it's something that's a kind of natural part of the town, and I think that it's something that, I think that the police would have a hard time enforcing any of this if they choose to or wanted to. I think that pretty much this should just be tabled right now, and you shouldn't waste any more time on it. But I've got a couple reasons that I think that this is a bad idea, and I'll just read some of them. Essentially, I think that banning amplification, which is one of the things, one of the items in the thing that we didn't read, is discriminatory to people that play anything other than maybe like an acoustic guitar or something. If you play a keyboard or you play something that involves amplification, essentially you're just breaking the law. And I think that that's kind of silly. The amplification being too loud is something that's already, limited by the noise ordinance that we have, and it's something that's really been self-policing with businesses and buskers the entire time that I've lived here and have been doing this. I think that the permitting, which is another item in there, which was not one of the recommendations by the PAC, is something that is a lot of, it's an extra cost to the village. Somebody has to do that. Somebody has to go and say, hey, do you have a permit to the people? I don't know if that's the police job, but it's just people wasting time and resources on something that is pointless to me. If the people in town, there might be 4 buskers, so you're going to sell 4 permits, and I think taxing and going after taxing busking is also just another waste of time. Nobody's getting rich down here making money, on a great day in 3 hours I might make $60, $70, you know what I mean? And I think that this is, it seems to me like it's picking on the little guy. I think that going after tax money and, cracking down on buskers or people that's selling handmade goods is picking on a little guy, and it's something that I don't think that our village as a whole supports. I know I don't. the main issue that people are having right now, and what's brought this all back up to the forefront, is that people are upset with bars essentially having live music that's amplified at night. And that's what's caused the problem. Well, that's already been handled by the noise ordinance that y'all passed a couple weeks ago or whatever. I think that essentially this is an irrelevant thing. It's a waste of time. It's being read for the second time with very limited input. I mean, it's obviously not that big of a deal to most people. I think last time that, at least some people expressed interest to discuss things or edit some of this, and that it hadn't really been discussed enough to the point where we should be voting on it. I think it's contrary to the recommendations of the PAC, and, I don't support this as a villager, as a, downtown resident, as a busker. So, just wanted to know where I stand.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
All right. All right, let's go ahead and go on screen. I'll let Amy follow up. So I see Gyamfi's hand.
I can ask him to unmute. It's a bad connection. It's a bad connection, but we can hear you, Gyamfi.
Okay. Well, I'm educated, so I appreciate that. Come on and keep council honest on this. But overreach is obvious overreach by the talent, the people with no talent and no rhythm, and people are saying, well, if I can't do that, I don't want you to be able to do it either, unless it's the kind of music that I like. This proposal or this ordinance draft is, there's no DEI in it. And that supposedly cuts against village, all what the village says they stand for, and they say they're DEI, and that's written into the fold. So this ordinance is people, it's a small group of people being represented and trying to make decisions for people who have talent and can play. Those who got the folks who have no creativity and no imagination want to control those who do. So it's kind of just falls back on itself. This is a situation which will never be stopped. Will never stop the music. And that goes for anyone in the world. But here in Yellow Springs, they are full of DEI. You'll never stop the music. I teach at the Antioch School for children. I teach the music and the culture behind it. I do the same at the college, and I do the same at the middle school. So I'm teaching a whole generations of youngsters coming up that won't stand for this either. So it's a losing battle, and like the gentleman who spoke before me, it's useless to go forward with this because the music can't be stopped. And this displays the lack of creativity and imagination on this council to try to stamp out music or sound that you don't like. When I say you, I'm talking about the small representative people. I saw some petition, I think it was from 2013, that Postway tried to bring up because they can't get any swing, any kind of backing presently. And for Councilor Crawford,
Gyamfi, that's 3 minutes.
that doesn't involve the buskers.
All right. Do we have anyone else? Laura, did you want to comment? I see that you're on Zoom. Okay, maybe not. And then I saw Misty pop up.
She looks like she's driving.
Okay.
You're scary.
Misty, pull over to the side before you speak. Okay, well, I'll wait for their hands. Amy?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Amy Walmsley. I'm going to speak on my own behalf just because I haven't cleared any of this with the PACC. So I'm just going to start now.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, by the way. Thank you.
I will say that the PACC was asked in October to review this and look at cards and come up with creative spaces. We've had one meeting since then, and now we're already at the second reading of this ordinance. So I'm really concerned why you haven't asked us for our feedback at all after you've asked us to do the business according to this, in regards to this ordinance, okay? It says nothing about creative spaces in it. It says nothing about anything that we recommended. So that's the first issue I have. The second issue is that you asked us to come up with cards and different things like that. No one's reviewed a card. There was a whole step that needed to be followed where citizens would regulate themselves and hand a card out. And if that was not taken care of, then the village would be notified. Again, nothing in this ordinance states that, and there has been nothing that has come back from PACC since you asked us to look at this 45 days ago or less. Permits, again, are not recommended. They do create a barrier to people who cannot afford them. I would also like to say that when you look at the survey that was run this spring, only 20% of businesses in the downtown business area said that amplification was an issue. However, your ordinance bans amplification across the entire village. I would also like to state that public spaces is actually defined in another part of legislation with the village, and so I want to point that out at the end of this. Let's see, why are we pushing this? It's November, so I'm a little concerned because busking is not an issue in the winter. So again, why not give the PACC at least a couple more meetings to really work this out and figure this out? I simply do not understand that. I am asking that you table this until you hear back from the PACC and until it's actually, and I will let you know what it is, it's Exhibit A to Resolution Number 2012-75, a policy in the use of village property and the right-of-way to various types of art. If you go down in here, it says that it encourages the artistic endeavor of village residents of all ages and abilities. However, this is not being taken into consideration, at least it does not seem so from my personal perspective, considering buskers have not been surveyed, and they specifically asked to be surveyed, and they are villagers who perform in this village, so they have a buy-in to this ordinance. Also, if you continue to go down to approximately, I believe it's page 4, it defines public spaces entirety. And then if you continue to go down into page 5, it specifically addresses in part 2 busking. And it says, types of art and procedures related to public spaces, performance, transit, spontaneous art, busking, other performances of short duration, usually out of doors in public right-of-way, public parks, Bryant Center, lawn. Public space, only generally, I will be done in 1 minute, only generally to be, when it talks about principles, public space only, generally no use issues. It talks about policy, it says no governmental involvement, absent complaint of law violation. Then it says proposal to council, no, usually spontaneous. Then if you continue to go down, permit, no, agreement, no. You are violating your own policies and are not adjusting something that's already in legislation, it does seem. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Okay, do we have any other feedback from citizens? Okay, so I see Misty's hand up. And then Laura's after, yes.
Good evening.
Hey.
Hello. Hi. I just wanted to bring up the of the application. I amplify to play my music and to sing, and I am much lower in volume than those that don't amplify, so that this is not going to work.
Okay. All right, thanks, Misty. Oh.
I just want to point that out. The violinists and the drummer, I'm much lower than them, and I do amplify.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for letting us know that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Laura Curlis.
Hello. A long time ago when the Arts Council was asked by, I think, Josue to take this topic up, I tried to find out, like, what is driving this? Like, why is this it seems to be that you're fixing something that isn't really a problem. Occasionally, there might be amplification that people don't like. Well, that's addressed by a noise ordinance. And look, I know noise ordinances are hard to enforce. The police have to get a little device to measure decibels, and they have to decide that they're using it correctly, etc. I get all that. But truly, I think the harm this would create is by far greater than what you're trying to solve. The other thing that was really disturbing to me is that I don't think police officers, even the chief, should be in a position of telling artists where to perform. Because choice of place in a public space, all artists realize they have to keep the right-of-way open. They often know exactly where to position themselves, and they choose the spot that's best for their art. And in part, that's part of what the art of busking, as young people learn when they get out there, is, well, where do I want to be? Like, where are the best places for what I do? And I just am very uncomfortable with government telling artists where to go. They should just look at things like clearance of right-of-way. The last thing is, we have tried to decriminalize these nuisance kind of things that many communities want to enforce and make criminal. I'm bothered this is a misdemeanor, that people could get criminal records, and that's very chilling, by the way. And that's not something that you have said you want to do in terms of equity. So I hope that you will reject this ordinance, and hopefully it won't show itself again. And I think there are other ways to deal with the minor, I don't know what to say, nuisances that some people experience when buskers perform, which, by the way, compared to other noise sources in the downtown, I think is very minor, really. Thank you. And I've said more in my letter to you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Laura. Okay, council members.
And Brian, are you closing the public hearing?
No, I think I'll leave it open for council members to talk, and we'll see. Gavin, were you gonna?
I can start, sure. I guess the short version is that I'm disinclined to support it, the permitting part, it feels onerous to me. I think I've said it feels to me generally like this isn't a notable issue. I appreciated seeing that there was some context from, not 8 or 9 years ago. I would be interested. We don't even need to talk about it here. I'd be interested in why it took 8 or 9 years for it to get here. But yeah, the amplification thing. If it can be handled by the noise ordinance, I was part of one of the conversations with the PAC about it. I know when we talked the last time, we talked about going back to get feedback from buskers. So anyway, I feel like there's a handful of reasons why I'm generally disinclined to be supportive, unless there's something new that I hear. So just to give you a sense of where I'm at.
Cool. Kevin?
Yeah, I, on the other hand, am in general in support of the ordinance. However, I'm considering whether we should table it and get some input from the actual artists. I mean, there was some confusion over the last couple of meetings about who actually did a survey. But regardless of who executed the survey, certainly if the folks that are going to be impacted by it the most, the actual artists, haven't been consulted, it seems like it would make sense to take that step. And to Amy's point, even though she's not representing the PAC, to the degree that we did suggest additional information and we haven't gotten that yet, I would think that we should. I was going to use the phrase "slow our roll," but just reconsider. Given that I don't see a time crunch in terms of the urgency, but at least let's complete the process. And I don't know to what degree that would change how I feel about it, because there are reasons why I would support it, but I don't think we should move forward without having a more exhaustive process. Thank you.
Okay. Mary Ann, anything?
Well, I would either vote against it or vote to table it, and we're coming up to almost a half hour having spent on it now, and we spent other time, and clearly this is important for people who busk, but whether there wasn't good preparation or whether it's very difficult, I don't know, but I don't like having to spend all this time on it.
Okay. Carmen?
Such vagueness.
I kind of stated this before, having the, potentially kind of adversarial relationship between artists and police that are tasked with enforcing ordinances, which could lead to a misdemeanor. That's kind of disconcerting for me. I think that as the ordinance is written, we were supposed to be a welcoming and progressive community. At least we purport to be welcoming and progressive. This ordinance is kind of the antithesis of both of those things. It's pretty conservative, and I've seen similar ordinances in municipalities that are conservative leaning, and this looks a lot like those, and so I have some concerns there. The permitting thing can create a barrier, and like I stated, I think a couple meetings before, there are people who come to town, open their guitar case, and start to play, and so they don't have a permit. A resident who doesn't particularly like guitar music sees that they don't have a permit, and then the police are called, this person is not permitted. It has the potential to be, to do more harm than good for the community as a whole. So again, I think that I echo Mary Ann's sentiments. I would either vote no as it is now, or vote to table it.
Okay. So I'll just highlight a few things. I think at the last meeting I gave some history. I wanted to make sure that folks saw that, we didn't make up the fact that we got a pretty strong signal from downtown business owners and workers that they wanted some response. I will stand by the fact that this council did not ask the Public Arts and Culture Commission to review this, but I was happy that they did. I think one of the things that we've heard, and I might have Chief Burge come up and remind us, is that this is ultimately closing a loop on the fact that while Chief Carlson was happy to talk to buskers and, about our, I guess, general agreement, that we should all play nice. The reality is there are situations, and we heard from a citizen, Gary Zaremski, that, there are places downtown where you need to move if you want to have a conversation. That doesn't mean that, I'm like anti the vibrancy, and in fact, I was new on council when this petition came forward. I did not want to deal with this. I love steel drumming. I love all of it. But I guess I do want to remind council of two things. One, the charter highlights that we are at large, so we need to listen to all citizens and balance those concerns. And so that's why we're talking about this, because citizens have said it's too loud, and it's not just bars. I mean, it's also the busking, and I think Gary was pretty brave to talk about that. We've also had a lot of conflicting views. The last meeting, when I kind of heard we heard recommendations from one person from the Public Arts Council saying citizens can hand out cards, a council member saying we would never support that. So there's a lot of confusion there. And so ultimately, I will stand by, despite what a commission member said in the paper, that we are responding to recommendations that we got. I mean, it was very clear from the Public Arts and Culture Commission, no amplification downtown. And that petition that we saw also said we are an acoustic town. So I'm not saying that this is my preference, but I just want us to understand we have a responsibility beyond our own preferences to the village as a whole. And I guess Chief Burge, just remind us what happens if there is a complaint moving forward without, I guess, doing anything.
So as it stands right now, if we had no ordinance in place, we would have to remove the language from the current website where it lists that if you have an issue with a busker, you can contact the police, and they can essentially, the context clues there lead you to believe that an officer would come and make someone move along. When in reality, the agreement there's no lawful authority for an officer to have someone move along, unless, of course, there's some other violation of some other ordinance. So the general public, you might read that and think, oh, okay, if they are not abiding by the agreement, that's against the law, so we're going to call a police officer. So that was essentially the purpose of this ordinance, right? So we're just trying to manage expectations. No ordinance, no problem, just no police enforcement. That's what it breaks down to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I'd like to respond. I think that you were referring to me with Mr. Zaremski's comments specifically. I didn't say don't hand out a card. I said we don't have expectations for citizens to approach buskers. That's what I stated.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Yeah. So I think in my mind, I don't see anything changing, because when we came up with that street performers agreement, it's worked great. And so to me, blowing this out of proportion and suggesting that all these things are going to happen and the police are going to descend on folks and we'll never have any busking is not a proper characterization. To me, this is closing a loop on whether, if things escalate to a point that is uncomfortable, then our officers have a way to respond. And so I just want it, to come back to reality, because, I mean, nobody here is a jerk. We all love being in Yellow Springs. We love the music. And as Gyamfi said, yeah, we're not going to stop the music. That's not the intention. So I just want this to be a realistic discussion. And so, Amy, is it really quick?
It's actually a serious question.
Okay.
I just want clarification. Are you saying that village council or no one of the village SPACC to review any ordinances regarding to busking? Is that what you are saying?
Lisa said she was going to do that, but we did not request that.
Okay, so I'm going to go back in the minutes because I specifically was asked that, one by you on a Zoom meeting, approximately April or May, I would believe, in 2021. And then Josue also brought it up in another meeting that he was on. I believe it was also a Zoom. So this was actually discussed in 2021. It was on our annual report that we would be reviewing it in 2021 for the month of July, actually. We talked about how we reviewed it because Laura Curlis, who was also on council, brought Jean Lohman and Wardell Kirk to the PACC meeting to talk about the history of music. And the reason why she did that is because she was on council, because it was discussed on council about busking. So if you would like me to go back in time and pull all of that, I will. But I'm telling you, we did not make up just randomly looking at the busking policy. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. And I'll again say that while we said that's great to review it, this was not something that we brought up as being a problem. So with that, I mean, I think the point is, yeah, you know, we should, I think, not table it, but just make a decision about whether we're closing the loop or not. So I'm going to close the public hearing, and Judy, let's go ahead and call the roll.
McQueen.
No.
DeVore Leonard.
No.
Stokes.
No.
Brown.
No.
Housh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So next up is the first reading of ordinance 2022-37, and we can do that by title only.
All right. This is repealing old section 1060.05 service charges of chapter 1060 storage and collection of garbage and other wastes of title 6 other public services of part 10 streets, utilities, and public services of the codified ordinances of the village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting a new section 1060.05 service charges.
Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Yes. All right, Josue.
All right, thank you, Brian, and I've prepared a presentation.
And actually, I don't think we need to go through that presentation.
Okay.
Because I think we all saw it. So, like, highlights.
Let me just go through one
Okay.
slide.
All right.
And then you got all the information. So I
Okay.
appreciate you guys looking at it, so that makes my job easier. So let me just go quickly through what is the summary, what you've got before you. Just a few weeks ago, you approved a 5-year contract with Rumpke. Rumpke is tacking on 10% to our fees. We need to pass that on to the customers. So our rates are increasing by that 10% fee, and we're including the spring cleanup. We're including the spring cleanup into the rate, guarantees that the spring cleanup would happen. We're not going to ask people to register, nor are we going to ask people to limit what they put out. They can put out as much as they want during that cleanup period. And we've negotiated that rate with Rumpke, so put all the stuff that you want come next spring cleanup, if council approves this ordinance.
Well, I got a lot of stuff.
So that is the gist of it. There's no changes to the recycling program. 2 bulk item pickups include per week. But if you forget to put that second item, you can hold on to it until spring cleanup and put it all out. So that is the gist of it.
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, that was the one highlight I had in my notes, so thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so are there any questions for Josue?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
One question or comment. This way, we discussed the added percentage. Are you thinking of doing that as a separate ordinance or?
So, Mary Ann, I did calculate that. There's no separate ordinance. What that is an option 2 if council wanted to, I'm sorry, let me take a step back. What Mary Ann is referencing to is 2 years ago, we provided an alternative option towards solid waste management and recycling. And that was to add a 2% fee that will create a revenue source for us to invest in reducing organic waste out of the landfill stream. It is a very common strategy in many communities that are looking to reduce their carbon footprint, the landfill footprint. So Mary Ann and I have spoken last week about continuing these efforts or investing in those efforts. Part of the reason is because, as you can see from your charts, our trash or waste is increasing. It's increasing in our community. We were surprised to see in 2021 recycling actually decrease. So solid waste went up and recycling activity went down. So I think that there are, in terms of our solid waste management strategy, we're adding more services, right? We've been able to negotiate great rates, adding 2 bulk items and all those things, but we aren't addressing the other side of that coin of reducing organic waste. So Mary Ann and I touched base last week about this fund for education. So if council is interested, we would present a secondary pricing model that would include a 2% fee adjustment on top of the rate, and that would yield anywhere between $6,000 and $7,000 a year that will go towards educational activities for our waste program. Those educational activities would be how to reduce your waste. We could also use some of those funding to buy buckets if we wanted to pilot a organic waste reduction program. So that is what Mary Ann brought up. If council is interested in it, I already did the legwork on calculating that fee. I will be happy to bring a rate sheet at the next council if council wanted to consider that.
So would that mean, so we would pass this ordinance and then that would be an additional?
Does that constitute a substantive change?
So you're suggesting you can go there?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, passing it tonight on first reading and then bringing that at second reading?
I could, yes.
This is not an emergency. So what I'm asking is, it would receive a second reading, but is that a substantive change if he changes the rates for the second reading? To me, it kind of might be. So.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Judy. I think that would be a substantive change. And then, but does council have the table in front of them tonight?
I can bring up the table.
Can I say something while he's doing that?
Sure.
Our waste production is a huge deal. Both recycling and especially organic waste. When I was in Vermont, you get fined if you put organic waste in the garbage. So this is an opportunity, and especially with working with the Climate Action Coordinator, and there's already Alex Klug has planned something called a waste audit. I actually don't know how it works, but it's a way for our citizens to start looking at how much they're wasting and what's happening. So I really want to strongly put a plug in for adding a little percentage so that we can be educating our community, doing some projects so that we can decrease our waste, because we really don't want to be living on a garbage dump. And we don't want to be sending it to China or shipping it out, sit in the ocean or someone else's backyard.
Yeah, go ahead, Gavin.
So I'm just making sure I understand. So what you're talking about is it would add a percentage, so there'd be an increase in the cost that is just, we're passing on because the increased cost from Rumpke. That's what we got in the packet, right? And then you're saying we would add on another 2 or 3% increase, which would generate something like $6,000 or $7,000 a year, which would go into a fund that would be utilized to try to think about how to ultimately reduce our...
Yes, both educational things as well as potentially a project like what Josue was referencing, a community compost kind of project.
I wonder, does Rumpke already legitimately do some sort of educational effort regarding waste management in the home?
The short answer is yes. To what extent and how targeted it is the question. So every year we do a mailer that goes out to the citizens. Mailer includes some information about recycling. We promote it on our website, what is recyclable, what's not, and we have material which was included in the packet when you approved the contract with Rumpke. So that's the educational material.
And if we did additional, I mean, would it be more of the same or something in addition or different than what we've seen already? The educational materials.
The educational component would be either what the administration designs to promote in the community, or what Mary Ann referenced, the Climate Action Sustainability Steering Committee.
I think I'd see it as being much more active rather than just something in the mail.
I guess I'm confused as to why that wouldn't be something that would happen through the Community Action Sustainability Program. It seems perfectly suited for that. I'm not sure why.
There is no money in that for materials and things like that. And this was Josue. This was Josue's idea, and I totally support it.
Josue, where would that language need to be in the ordinance?
I'm sorry?
Where would that language need to be in the ordinance?
It would not, the educational materials would not need to be. It would be added on to the monthly fee. So I'm pulling up both charts right now.
Right, so it would require the entire charts to be different?
Right, exactly, the residential services piece. So right now, what you see up on your screen, Judy, if we can make that window smaller. So what you're looking at here on this screen, this would be the monthly charge that includes the spring cleanup. The next sheet over will be the spreadsheet with the 2%, educational services. So there is a price difference.
I mean, my goal, my end goal, one of my end goals would be to help people reduce the amount of waste they produce and then get a lower rate from Burge. If we're producing less waste, we should be able to get a lower rate. And that is, so I would like this to be cost effective in the end, but that takes some doing to figure out how to do that.
So, is it okay?
Yeah.
So I think I support the concept. I guess I'll just, as we're doing budgeting right now, as we're talking about revenue sources, as we're, talking in this meeting about, expenditures, I'll just say, I think I'm sort of feeling like in this sort of tension point of how many, fees, taxes, what's our revenue situation and what are the expenditures that we use our dollars on. So I'll just say, I'm open to it. I would have liked some more time to think about it. I think my first gut reaction is would like to have some. So let's just say if we're talking about $7,000 more, and the question is we put $7,000 toward that, very well may be a great program that's got a lot of proof that it's valuable to do the audit you talked about. I'm thinking about other things that we could do with $7,000, and or whether or not a percentage increase is something we should try to keep off of taxpayers in the hopes, residents in the hopes that we're doing our part to maintain affordability. So anyway, just to say out loud the things that I'm balancing in my head as we're thinking about the idea of an addition.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
Nobody likes the last minute information. Nobody. I'm wondering if you might think about bringing this back as, you could read it as an emergency at the next council meeting, and you could have 2 ordinances before you, one with each set of rates, and you can come in fully prepared to make a decision as to which one you want to hear.
That's a good idea.
And to tag on to that, I agree with Judith that in the language in your charter that the ordinance needs to be introduced in the form substantially in which it's finally passed. I was thinking you were talking about substantially the same between first and second reading, but yeah, that language, if we're going to have to take out all the tables and replace them, then
It would just be one table, and that would be the residential services. All else will remain the same.
but yeah, it's a pretty substantial change.
Yeah.
So, but that's probably the safest bet.
Okay. So I think that's a great idea. I also think that means we should have some kind of, one-pager in the packet that explains that as well, what that difference means. So, all right. So I think we don't have any action to take. All right, and we're going to move into Resolution 2022, oh no, I'm sorry, Ordinance 2022-38. Judy, we can do that by title only?
Okay, this is repealing and replacing Chapter 238, Treasurer.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Well,
I can jump in if you want.
actually, we'll have Amy do it. I was going to say, there are lots of people that could speak to this, but we'll have our village solicitor do it.
So later in your packet tonight, there's a resolution appointing your treasurer, and attached to that resolution is a description of the job, is a job description. In reviewing that, then when I was reviewing Chapter 238 of the codified ordinances, there's language in there, a lot of language in there that no longer seems to be relevant. So then we had some conversations about it. It's a former loan program, I think, that no longer exists, and there's some other details that needed to come out of 238. So we're doing a whole overhaul of 238, repeal and replace, to take out the superfluous language that's no longer relevant. And then coming down the pike at some point, I think you'll probably see another ordinance, a new one, not a repeal and replace, to establish the position of finance director in the code. The finance director is certainly contemplated in the code, but there is no ordinance. There shall be a finance director, and this shall be their roles. Most other department, all other department heads do have such an ordinance. So the two things are sort of interrelated to make sure that the code is accurately depicting the way things are operating.
So, Amy, do you think, and so, I think just to frame, and then I'll ask my question. So, hopefully people saw, 1952, established a treasurer. We didn't have a finance director until 28 years later. Do you think we ultimately should change the charter?
Thank you, Brian, for pointing out the whereases that we labored over very carefully to make sure we had our dates correct. Maybe, yeah. I mean, it could. The ideal solution, of course, would always be that the charter matches exactly with the way the operation of the village, the actual day-to-day operation of the village. Doing so, of course, is a big lift to amend the charter. I don't know that there is not anything in that language that isn't still relevant to the way the treasurer operates when the reports come before council, and you have the person, Judy, filling the role and running those reports and presenting them to you. So ultimately, yes, when the time comes to do some charter amendments, I think that'll be top of the list that should be looked at. But for now, this ordinance really needed some cleaning up. Doing so, I think, clarifies what the role really is. Even this ordinance is very dated. I mean, the language in the charter, of course, is from the 50s, but this ordinance itself hasn't been changed in a long time either. So, to answer your question, yes, ultimately, probably you should.
All right. Thanks, Amy. Okay. Questions, comments?
So I have a question. I just, in light of, trying not to bring up a bad topic, but in light of some recently occurring audit issue, would making these changes be a good thing with respect to our ultimate response to the...
They show that we're being responsive, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, I mean,
I think yes to the being responsive. In terms of the practical approaches, it does clear up the language to make it, to leave less room for a different interpretation, somebody who wants to take some liberties in their interpretation of what is in that dated ordinance.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, one thing, thanks Amy, that is not substantive, but for the next round is 238.03 E3B1. Seems to also need to change to Finance Committee, since we're trying to be consistent about that.
Could you rattle off that section again?
238.03 E3B1 was another place just to put Finance Committee. And then I did also wonder if Star Plus is gone, if we need to take that out or not. So, and we don't have to discuss that, but okay. And then a last thing I just want to flag is that the ordinance says that we're supposed to annually review the investment policy. So, assuming, well, whoever our treasurer is, just make sure to put that on our annual list to put the investment policy in the packet and review it.
It's a good idea.
Yes. You want to be in compliance.
Well, not just that, but there's also the impact investment that we've been talking about.
Right. Right.
Keep that discussion going.
Cool. All right. Anything else? Okay. So I think that's the first reading, so we'll be able to bring that back next time. And we're going to move on to Resolution 2022-61. And I'm actually going to have Mary Ann read that in full.
Yes. Approving the annual distribution of flour and sugar to village widows and widowers. Whereas Wheeling Gaunt, who was born into slavery in about 1815, did, through his own wit and will, purchase his own freedom as well as that of his wife and a friend, and did thereafter make his way to Yellow Springs, Ohio in the early 1860s, where he became a successful and respected member of the village. And whereas Mr. Gaunt, at his passing in 1894, left in his will a bequest that the poor, worthy widows of Yellow Springs, regardless of their race, be given 25 pounds of flour during the Christmas season. This purchase was made from the sale of crops grown on what is now Gaunt Park. And whereas residents of Yellow Springs to this day enjoy the benefits of Gaunt Park as a result of the generosity of Wheeling Gaunt, and whereas, as a nod to the changing times, Mr. Gaunt's bequest has, over the years, been amended to 5 pounds of flour and 5 pounds of sugar, both to widows and widowers, all of whom are considered worthy. And whereas, as the holiday season approaches and we think of ways we can share our love and concern for all the members of this community, it is fitting that we honor the memory of Wheeling Gaunt and the spirit of his gift in the manner he intended. Now, therefore, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio hereby resolves that, Section 1, the village manager is hereby authorized and directed to procure the traditional supplies and distribute them as stipulated in the deed for Gaunt Park and as expanded by Council in 2012. Section 2, the expenditure of up to $1,000 from the Widows Fund number 902-1703-54102 is hereby authorized and provided in the village's annual appropriations.
All right. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Well, I can't say enough about how awesome this tradition is, and I know the village is going to do a great job. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Okay, we're going to move on to Resolution 2022-62, and Judy, we can do that by title only.
All right, this is authorizing the Yellow Springs Police Department to develop and administer a therapy dog program.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, I'm excited. Uh-oh.
So is Dad.
See? All right, Johnny obviously, Johnny's got a therapy dog in mind, I guess. All right, Chief Burge?
Yes, good evening. So I wish I had the opportunity to bring one of our therapy dog candidates this evening. Unfortunately, I didn't. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Well, you can see our therapy dog candidate on the CICSA website. His name is Shazam, and I don't know if it's possible. Yeah, hold on one second. Shazam! I don't think it's possible to say that name without using 18 exclamation points. So, yeah, he's a lovely rescue. He's just a candidate right now. We're not 100% sure, but he's a lovely rescue from the CICSA organization. He is a mutt. That is the best way to describe him. He's full of all different things, but one of which is Basset Hound, so he stands a little bit like this, which is adorable. But no, so obviously you guys know the details of the program. I think it's going to be a wonderful addition to the department, to the community, something very fitting for Yellow Springs. Just want to answer any questions that I can, and hopefully get this program started.
So how much of the 13,000 for the first year do we have?
So we are just over 10,000 of that is already covered.
Okay. And it looks like annually it's about 2,500. So do we have a plan for that?
So still seeking grant opportunities for that, and there's a lot out there. There really is. I think I put some of that stuff in my budget proposal, some of the things we're going to be seeking. Still seeking donations as well, which we have plenty of time to do. One of the things about the program is that the dog actually has to live with us for about 6 months before it can begin work. So we'll have a lot of time to seek some of these opportunities, or some of these areas.
All right. Well, I love it. Thank you. Yeah, and very, very good proposal. Thank you.
I do want to recognize two of my team members, if I can, real quick. So this proposal, the actual idea of a therapy dog came from Officer Stephen Kincaid, who's in our schools right now. He originally proposed this back when I was promoted to sergeant in August. Hey, you guys ever thought about this? It seems very fitting. And then I actually tasked our health and wellness officer, Officer Meister, with doing a lot of the legwork, collecting some of the information, and he was able to pull some of that information together for us. So it's really been a team effort all around, but those two guys I did want to give a bit of recognition to.
Thank you. And actually, I also want to, before I hand off the mic, mention that I really like when you also include the PD policy language. So, yeah, for me, it's nice just to see how that's, being translated. So thank you. Kevin, were you going to?
No, I'm just stuck on Shazam. Shazam! And I guess I would imagine that someone would ask the question, since Shazam has so many breeds in one, they probably check the box for what some might think is an appropriate breed. There's on the premise that some breeds would be better as therapy dogs based on their inbreeding. Is that a concern, or does Shazam actually check all the boxes?
So that's not a concern. One of the first things we've asked of these agencies, these organizations, is that they temperament test and good citizen test all these dogs before they even suggest them to us as a candidate. So that's been done by SIXA already. Matter of fact, they brought Shazam for a visit with us on Friday. Johnny came down and tried to steal him from us. That's really the key with a therapy dog is temperament. They can be any breed, they can be any. Most of them can even have any background as long as they pass those temperament tests and then obviously get through the training and all of the requirements there. So yeah, Shazam is one of those dogs that I think is a nice parallel with the police department. And what I mean by that is when you look at him, he might look a little bit rough to some people. He's a brindle color, which I love. I've always thought it was a very beautiful color on a dog. But you might think, wow, that dog looks a little bit rough and tough, which some people might think about police officers, but then when you meet us, we lick your face. Well, the dog does. The dog does, but not us. So I think it's a nice parallel.
Duly noted.
I think they have an image now.
Yeah.
See? Anything else? Okay. All right. Thanks, Chief. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. All right. 2022-63. Judy, we can do that title only.
This is amending the employment agreement with Michelle Robinson as accounting and payroll manager.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Josue.
Thank you, Brian. This is primarily to resolve an issue with sick leave transfers. When we negotiated this contract with Michelle Robinson, we were operating under what we thought were constraints by the outgoing her employer, the employer that she was leaving. So it turned out that she could not cash those time, the time that she had, and all of it couldn't be transferred, so it was capped. So this change in the contract cures this issue of transfer leave, and it's more in line with our current policy, the personnel policy, that we allow employees to bring in any time that they've accrued, sick leave that they've accrued at another public employer. They're allowed to bring that here. Since Michelle came on board, we capped her ability to bring in hours. After her hire, we've had employees get hired, and they were allowed to bring in that sick leave from other public entities. So this resolves that issue, that conflict in the contract and our personnel policy that we've outlined. So this looks to correct that disparity between her contract and what is allowed per the personnel manual that oversees the benefits of all employees.
It's not clear, how many hours are we talking about?
I'm not clear on that, but it's more than the 250 that had been approved. And our personnel manual does not make a distinction as to how many hours employees are allowed to bring. It's rather unlimited.
So will this language, which does, going from a particular number to all available, addresses the concern here, will that, or do you think that change needs to be made in the employee manual?
I think that's a separate matter. For in this particular contract, there's an issue of this one particular employee being treated different than what the personnel manual allows. I think if council wishes to revisit that topic at a later time, certainly it would be within its purview. It has discussed this issue going back as early as early part of 2021.
Okay. So in the past, council was not apprised of the fact that we were carrying over these hours, right? I mean, like when we hired Colleen, for example.
I don't know if those managers at the time raised issues. I certainly have been looking over those numbers to understand the financial impact, and certainly I raised those issues when we did the personnel review with the two council members. I raised what are the liabilities issues. But in terms of that information getting to council, I don't know what was and what's not getting to council. I keep an eye on all those liabilities because from a financial perspective, I account for some of those liabilities on our financials because we need to make room if people leave the organization and they cash out.
So you said you don't know how many hours, so you don't know what this liability is?
Yeah, at the current moment, no. But I would say that it would not be unreasonable to think that there could be 500 or 600 hours.
Okay, so the reason why this was brought up, just so everyone's up to date, is in the past we were not informed when we agreed to contracts that these hours were being carried over. So we learned subsequently that we're liable for potentially a lot of additional hours. What Josue is describing is that there's an equity issue right now because part-timers are coming in with sick leave that's being paid out. So I strongly believe we need to address this in the personnel manual. But anyway, I'll say I support this recommendation because I think Michelle's doing a great job, and I understand why we're bringing this forward. But I think we need to be really clear that there was not transparency around what the full impact of contracts have been in the past. So. Okay. Yep.
So just to be clear, we've talked about this in Finance Committee. The issue, whose job is it next to get something to who? In terms of rectifying the issue or looking at the issue long term?
Excellent question, Gavin, because from my perspective, this was something that Lisa Krieger was taking the lead on. She has since left. Some of us were looking at you as the person to lead this, but I don't think there's ever any formal action to say, oh, Gavin is now taking this lead on. So I don't think that we've actually talked about it and assigned it to anyone.
So we have a upcoming amendment to the policy manual related to our anti-racism policy, and I have suggested that we close the loop on this as well. And that doesn't mean that future contract negotiations can't look at this transfer, but I don't believe it should be an automatic. So. So, I mean, I think that's our next opportunity.
Okay, so just to be clear, Brian, so then you're working with someone on the language, or I just want to make sure it's not, this seems like it was like out there as though someone was supposed to do something, and I'm just trying to make sure we know who's doing what, if, when.
So I think we're doing something, right? I mean, I sent you and Amy an email.
Yeah, so
that I wanted that to be part of the next change.
Amy has worked on the anti-discrimination language to bring us in compliance with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission. So if this is something that council wants us to draft some language, certainly we can draft language. Do you want us to draft our language, or ORC has pretty clear language on some of these issues? ORC being Ohio Revised Code.
I have no expertise on this issue whatsoever, so I don't know what Lisa knew, but I'm definitely not Lisa. So I am very much happy to follow solicitor, anyone who has any expertise at all in this. I think it seems like it's a little out of control. Like, it seems like it's worth checking in on to make sure we have clarity and consistency, and that we're in line with the way that other municipalities are handling their business, so we're not taking on significant debts. So if that's, I don't know what, I wouldn't be the one to write it. So if somebody else can write it, that would be great.
We're certainly can put something together. Brian, I'll take from your email that we'll present you what ORC and another community has done, and we'll have several different options to look at.
So I think part of Josue's hesitation is a lot of municipalities just do automatically take on hundreds of hours of sick leave. And then if somebody like stays for a year and decides to cash out, that municipality is responsible for those hundreds of hours of sick leave. So I think it's important that we shut that down. I mean, close that loop. And then, again, if part of a negotiation is carrying over sick leave, then that can be part of the discussion. So I think Josue is like asking, do other council members have interest in closing that loop?
Well, I would think our solicitor would be helpful in this regard, and looking at what other communities do and how also they resolve this issue.
And also, I'm just going to say, we are severely behind, and we might want to put this on as an agenda item for the next time, because we are now about an hour and 20 minutes.
Except that we don't have the AMP special report, so we're still going to end up being early.
From a timing perspective, OCRC needs to get back with us on approval on our anti-discrimination language. So then, at that point, council can approve the revised, personnel manual with that new language in it. We could very easily put this language in it as well. Prior to doing that, it may be helpful to bring a draft of some sample language in front of council, a few different options to look at, discuss, and guide us in terms of what you want to see. Every community does it differently. You have the authority to do it however you want. But we can give you some samples. But I would tie it to that OCRC, just because then council's only changing the personnel manual. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right.
The only other thing I'll add is I would welcome input from staff or residents who have experience in this area. I'm just thinking about, for instance, my wife is a teacher. There are steps for teachers that you go to a different community, you still get your steps. So it's like, I just don't understand enough about public employment and the extent to which this is a benefit that is expected or not expected. So I'm just naming out loud, that's, to me, it seems like it's the other side of the equation. I would hope that other municipalities have grappled with this. There's some, so I don't know if it could be like, if you're here for 5 years, or I don't know. So if there are any, if there is any input that staff have about this, I would certainly welcome that input.
Okay. All right. So, okay, but back to the matter at hand. I certainly support Michelle's sick hours moving forward. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Resolution 2022-64. Judy, we can do that by title only.
Right, this is approving a 3-year employment contract and wage adjustment with the village treasurer.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So basically, Judy's contract needed to be renewed. she has been willing, now that we've tied up some of the loose ends, to continue as our treasurer, which I think is great. Any questions or comments? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Judy.
Yes, Judy, we appreciate it.
Even if we're really late, thank you.
Well, there was a reason for that. All right. Resolution 2022-65. We can do that by title only.
This is approving a contract with Amy Kemper as Finance Director.
All right. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. So, I'll first of all say that Gavin and I were part of interviewing Amy. She is amazing, and we have needed a finance director for a while. I know Josue is very excited, and and I think if you want to highlight some of Amy's attributes.
She not only checks the boxes, but exceeds all the expectations that we're looking for in a candidate. Has been a CPA, a registered CPA since the late 80s, has worked in public service for most of her career. Most recently, she's at the Ohio Hospice group, and prior to that, she was Bellbrook Sugar Creek Park District. So she's very familiar with government accounting and processes, and I think she brings in some other relevant experience. And we can't wait to have her. I've included a short bio for her in the packet.
Yeah.
Really like the bios.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was nice to have the photos too, so we know who we're talking to. I think the other thing that really resonated with the interview committee was that Amy highlighted that she's really into educating folks about finance. And so she understands that it can be intimidating for some people, and that was one of many things that we liked. All right. So, with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And last is Resolution 2022-66. We can do that by title only as well.
This is authorizing payment of invoices with then and now certificate for the fourth quarter of 2022.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Josue.
All right, and talking about finances, earlier this year, you might have heard me boast about how in my 3 years here, we had our first then and now this year. Well, God, we got our second then and now this year. So a little context, there's some background on this. Every year, we have an audit expense. It's a contract that's approved through the state, and it's been with Judith and Group for a long time now. That contract, it's supposed to get loaded into the system January 1, because our audit starts January 1. Well, it did not get into January 1. So we got our first invoice in late September. And as we go to pay for it, well, I'm sorry, we got it a couple weeks ago. As we go to pay for it, it wasn't there. So realized that, oops, it's a then and now. So it's something that has to come before council, and council needs to approve. On the certification of the unencumbered funds, we have the funds. We had budgeted for that expense. It just happened that the requisition was not loaded into our procurement system as it was supposed to at the beginning of the year.
Okay. Any questions? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. We're now at the point where we'll take any comments about any items that are not on the agenda with citizen concerns, up to 3 minutes. Do we have any? Jessica? Yes.
Jessica Thomas, Yellow Springs News. I had my hand up earlier, but I think you missed it.
Sorry?
I just wanted to clarify, this is regarding the solid waste ordinance, that you said it was a 10% increase that was a pass-through from Rumpke.
Yes.
And if we added the 2% fee for education and organic waste items, that would be a total of a 12% increase.
Yes, doing the arithmetic there, how I calculated in my spreadsheet, I did the 10% adjustment on the rate, and then there is the cleanup fee added after the 10% because we didn't want to add the spring cleanup fee to the whole price and then add 10% of that. So then we're only passing the 10% just on the base rate, and because we negotiated a fixed rate for the spring cleanup, we've added that cost by tier after the 10% calculation. The 2% is added based on my formula, is added on the 10% plus the spring cleanup fee, then it's that 2% adjustment.
Okay,
So
thank you.
the
And can
arithmetic
you
will shake
send a
out
copy of
somewhere.
that spreadsheet?
I will send you the totals.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jessica. All right, any other citizen concerns? All right, looks like Gyamfi has something.
I will ask him to unmute here. Gyamfi, you're unmuted. Okay, so am I switching it?
Pick one.
Okay. All right, so, all right, you can unmute on either one.
Okay. Also, before I go into my concern, I wanted to know I'm going to tell me afterwards, the salary of the new finance director. So I'm not going to read the letter to the packet. I'm just going to highlight some points that I sent in.
And it's about the gender apartheid that's going on in Iran. And the woman, who was killed for not appropriately wearing a hijab. I just hope that council doesn't ignore the resolution. For whatever reason, whether it's because it's women that's being suppressed or because it's being done in the name of a religion, I hope that you become resolute in this resolution like you did. I appreciate the proclamation with the Ukrainian war that you made. I'd appreciate the same thing for these courageous women. Just like today, the winners of the New York City Marathon, they use their limited platform to highlight and not allow this theocratic, oppressive state to snub out these revolutionary women.
Not allow them to be forgotten. So I hope that
you look at that, and if you're frightened to make the statement, you can put my name on it and say that this is coming from citizens out of Gymerah. If you don't want to make that a resolution, a proclamation to support these heroes, because we all know what can happen. You can ask Salmon Rescue. And then with that being said, I wanted to also know, before I go to my next question, this also kind of shows you what can happen if we would have allowed council to go on with the ordinance with the busing. So you can shut down, once you start shutting down little things like that, what else are you going to sit on? These women can't even sing. They can't ride a bike. They can't wear their clothes or their hair really right. And they're
standing up with their lives.
Okay, thanks, Gyamfi. I certainly would not compare the two, but I know that you did CC Carmen. Carmen, are you interested in working on a resolution on this?
Not currently.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Any other citizen concerns?
Do we want to answer Gyamfi's question about the salary?
It's in the packet, so you can just read it. Okay. So we're going to move into special reports, and we've got Angie Hsu. I think I know how to pronounce it now. Come on up to the mic.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to be here to provide you an update about the Yellow Springs Guaranteed Income Pilot, YS Equity, which will be launching this Friday. The lottery will be open for 10 days, and it will provide 15 families with 24 months of $300 monthly unconditional, no strings attached payments. I won't go through the history of it because I did that last time I was here. It's also on our new website, ysequity.org, so everybody is welcome to go there and learn about it. I'm just going to give a quick description of what this actually means and what it means to apply. Our goal is to get everybody in the community up to date, to encourage people who are eligible to join the lottery, to participate, but also for the community at large to support it. You know, we've been working on this for over a year, really developed at every stage with the input of community members, community leaders, the workers like Florence Randolph, who are on the ground with people in need every day. So we're really excited, and it really is. I've said it before, but I'll emphasize that it's really special. We are currently the only village that is doing a guaranteed income pilot, and we are currently the only project in the United States, we've been told by the experts, that is doing this through the community foundation with the intention of it being an endowment fund, which will allow this to continue in perpetuity. So if we can meet our fundraising goals, this will continue forever for different families in need. So as I mentioned, the lottery opens on Friday. All of the information about eligibility is on the website, and you will also enter the lottery on the website. We'll have a team of trained volunteers, so anybody who needs tech support or needs somebody to walk them through that, we will have those resources available. So that will be open for 10 days. Quickly to go over the criteria, it's very simple. You need to be over 18, you need to be a resident of Yellow Springs or Miami Township, and you need to meet federal income threshold requirements, and all of that is on the website. That depends on the size of your household, so that's why there's not one number. It depends on how many people are in your home. And it is a weighted lottery, so what that means is we're also looking at equity factors. We're looking at 2 equity factors specifically. One is low income, and the other is single parent status. So if you fall in those groups, you'll have an increased chance of being selected as one of the 15 participant households. We expect results to be similar as the other 100+ demonstrations all over the country, with a lot of clear indicators for financial stability, for increased mental and physical well-being. And we are confident of that because we really are working with the national experts in the field. We are part of the portfolio of the Center for Guaranteed Income Research at the University of Pennsylvania. We are working with OSU as well to run a 2-year research evaluation process to hopefully make it very clear the impact of this first pilot and into the future. We've also been awarded a Greene County ARP Act grant for initial expenses, which has been a great vote of confidence from the county. So as I said earlier, this is really a community-supported initiative. This is for our residents, developed by our residents, supported at every stage by the community itself. So the ask is for you to spread the word. This poster is going to be going up all over town. We're hoping people will encourage everybody to learn more about this, and we're also looking for support. So anybody who's interested in making a donation, we have a really cool, interesting campaign, which is you can donate as an individual, but you can also, as a household, as a family, multi-generations come together and make a donation. You can also get a group of your friends or your fellow council members or any group and say, you know, we would like to support this project by giving $300 a month, which will cover payments to one family. So yeah, as I said, a donation of $330 essentially covers payments to one participant household for a month. There's annual support, 2-year support, and pretty much a donation of $100,000 enters the endowment fund, which means that will support one household in perpetuity, really making this a program that's very unique in the country, and we all know very needed everywhere in the world, but here as well. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah.
Marianne?
So I'm interested in how you determined the criteria, the weighted criteria, because I could imagine race, age, how long you've lived in the community, whether you have, whether it's a multi-generational thing.
Absolutely.
Those kind of things, but you just ended up with
Yes,
two?
those were all of those, in fact, were on our initial list of equity factors, because we are doing a small pilot of only 15 families this year. In terms of the algorithm, in terms of the math, you really need to essentially break it down to two. We are planning to run another lottery next year, potentially slated for June or July, in which we'll add another 15 families to the cohort, and that will allow us to raise this program to 30 households, and with the potential of, the larger your program is, the more equity factors you can include in it. So hopefully that's in the books for the future, but given our very, very small size, which is very unique, 2 is really the maximum we had to take it down to.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm impressed. I've heard about this program through a couple of avenues, and to think, no matter how you look at it, we are unique in terms of size, in terms of geography, because as I understand, this happens in big cities on the coast. There's hardly any place else in the Midwest, so thank you for what you all have been doing on this project, and I look forward to supporting it in a tangible manner.
Yep.
All right.
I also appreciate that Greene County supported it as well. And then I want to make sure that we're also promoting this on our social media. Yes. Okay, so you got our support on spreading the word.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Angie. All right. Okay, so we are going to move into the manager's reports.
All right. Okay. First, I would like to point out these new windows.
I noticed that.
Yes, energy rated. So this is part of our improvement plan for the entire building. We've slowly upgraded it. A lot of it is Johnny's diligent effort to ensure we're getting at one piece at a time. So at some point we'll get to upgrading the entire building, but this year is council, so Judy's window. So this is done. A couple highlights that are not included in my managers. We on broadband, we had our first hardware hookup on Friday with our first client, and so we're troubleshooting the network to make sure that the laser light that's invisible makes it to the modem and folks are connected. So this week we'll continue the testing, the network testing, and we'll be rolling it out. So finally, we are in one person's household and troubleshooting the connection. So that is moving forward. I know we're pressed for time. I've included a lot of information in the manager's report. I'm happy to take any questions. I appreciate the comment on the personnel profiles. So long overdue. Now you've got a name, a face, and a little bit of background on how wonderful a team is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any questions on the manager's report?
Marianne?
No, I don't have any questions.
Oh, you had a request, correct. So you had a request earlier on about Ellis Pond Friday. This evening, I emailed Socrates and Brooke, the 2 emails that you provided to me on Friday. Hopefully I can get a meeting tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday on this.
Okay, so I'm just going to wind it back a bit. Our last council meeting, it was awkward, and Brian was, I think you were concerned that the environmental commission was moving along and staff, that there wasn't an alignment. And so the goal was to get alignment, and so that part of that is to get a meeting with 2 people from Xylem and Carmen and me, or at least with Carmen, I'd say, and Josue. But there's some other things. One is the waiver, which is in the packet, and so I think we need to know whether that's acceptable.
Is that considered our waiver, or was that a sample?
That was a sample.
Okay.
So that is, yeah, well, let's, since we're talking about the waivers, so that was the waiver that our village solicitor particularly liked. Carmen found some really good waivers as well from 3 other municipalities. I looked at all of them, and I thought that the Centerville one was comprehensive. What did you think, Carmen? Were you?
Because I think, yeah.
And I love that discrimination statement as well. So, yeah. So I think we can make that ours if we're all good with that. So.
Okay, so the 2 other things, well, maybe 3 other things. November 11th was, which is Friday, right, is the date that the Xylem volunteers were going to come to work at the pond, which means, of course, that not only do we need to have the meeting before then, get the waiver, but also the pond breaks. Now, it's possible to get the pond breaks still if we order them tomorrow morning. And there was money in that, I mean, and I don't know that we want to talk about that at the council meeting table, but without that, there's not much reason for having the volunteers come. Is that correct, Carmen, do you think?
So, yes, that's right. I think that it was my understanding from speaking with you that that's what we were going to work on last meeting. It didn't happen. And, you know, if they are going to be able to get in, well, if they're going to be able to do the work, they need the tools to do the work. And the meeting was set up for November 11th because the later it gets in the season, they're not going to be able to get out there to do it much later.
So I guess, Brian, Josue, I'm looking to you all for guidance because the Environmental Commission that still has, there is money in the budget. We have not spent all the money that we requested. We didn't put pond breaks in the line item because in January that wasn't, part of the deal. But I mean, I looked up on Amazon. It's still possible to get things by the 10th. So how should we handle this?
Can I ask a question, though? Is it possible to stage this without Public Works being present? Can that happen?
Yes, as long as we have, yes, and as long as we have the release of liability waiver. That's what we need, unless we need, Xylem doesn't require that Public Works is present.
So they know where to put everything, everything will be handled. They know where to dispose of things. There's no need for any
That will be
village.
part of the reason, that is part of the reason for having this Zoom meeting.
Well,
right?
I'm bringing that up because
it will be picked up and taken to compost. What's happening is that it's not more than this is an exercise in getting all of the plant material out of the pond. That's not what this is. This is the opportunity for them to fulfill their their corporate mission of having a work-related project that has to do with water. This is an exercise in relationship building, and it's an exercise in community building. Now, we're not going to be able to remove tons of plant material from the pond. That's understood. This is basically so Xylem can fulfill their need to do a project involving water cleanup before the wintertime.
Well, and I think, as you said, the idea of being able to have a partnership with Xylem, an ongoing partnership, because this is something that they're interested potentially in continuing.
But I think to answer the question, it's not, no one from Public Works is going to have to be there. No one's going to have to dispose of anything. There will be a truck there to take whatever algae is removed, and I don't imagine it's going to be very much a way to be composted.
If this is a program that the company operates, could you probably something? Can't you think I would just do it? If this is a program that the company operates, they have documents that we could review, an indemnification of the village if this is part of their program.
They do.
Do they have their own
It's online. Do they have their own what?
pond breaks?
No,
No, they don't.
no, they don't.
And they also have their own waivers, so they have to sign their waiver and they have to sign our waiver.
So really quickly, this would be, EC has been doing this for a couple of months, and I think that where I missed the opportunity and failed to communicate, I was under the assumption that there would be more support, and there hasn't been. And so this is maybe would be an argument for having a staff person at an EC meeting, maybe, but I think that EC can get it together enough that we don't require a staff person there. But there's, things that we've been working on, and there's like not continuity, but I don't know if this is a conversation that we can have right now
Yeah,
either way. So
it's like
pond breaks,
awkward.
yes or no, and then what else?
Well, we need to get the documents pulled together and executed before Friday.
So they have, that's all that stuff is on their website. And we had a meeting planned before, and then that changed. And it was changed in a time frame that wasn't possible for the people from Xylem to get on board with the plan.
Or I have a couple of thoughts on this. I became aware of this Monday that there was this 11th November, a potential for November 11th date. I didn't participate on the coordination of the meeting or anything that transpired to confirm the date. I had set time aside to meet on Wednesday about possibilities. I got the email from Friday from Marianne. I didn't get a chance to follow up until late today to send an email to Socrates and Brooks for a meeting.
Right.
So I haven't really been part of any planning process. So I don't know how we fit in this exercise, as you call it. So I don't know how we weigh in. We don't know what's being done, what's proposed to be done. So Judy's questions are very relevant to me because I'm asking myself the same questions. What are the activities? What is needed? Not just what is needed, but I had hoped that we would have an opportunity to work together and have this meeting and we can plan out. And if we're going to go down the route of a volunteer day, that there's more communication, collaboration, so we can figure out what we're doing. Because otherwise, I feel like there's a group of people or there's a coordination for a volunteer day that the information isn't being communicated about what that partnership looks like. What does it entail? What is the goal?
Well,
So I don't know what is needed for me. It sounds to me as two council folks have an idea of how you want to go in solving this problem, and council needs to approve it or not approve it. I don't know how I or Johnny fit into this scheme.
So are we comfortable? I mean, I don't ask permission to go walk around Ellis Pond, but I'm not going out there getting in the water, snatching plants. Are we comfortable just having folks going out there doing something? We try. There's an element of trust there. I mean, they're a known entity, so I don't think they intend to do us harm. Are we all good with this? I mean,
So again, it's not the place at council table for council members to negotiate with staff and whatever, right? Just like what happened last time. So it sounds like there's continued to be delays. Weather's holding up. So you sent an email. All right. So we need to follow up with that. I guess in terms of pond rakes, I don't know.
When did you send the
I'm
email?
gonna say,
Yeah.
this is not great, but EC had, it was my understanding that staff did not want to be involved in this. This is why EC continued to work on it. EC continued to develop a plan. In particular, Carmen did this legwork. So it's not like EC just ignored staff. It was our understanding that staff did not want to be involved. And that was how we were operating until the last council meeting, Brian, when you weren't happy with that. Well, I wasn't happy with that. I didn't want that, but that was our understanding. So I don't want, it's awkward and it's unfortunate, but I don't want EC or me or especially Carmen to just take the heat for that. So we're at the point where we are and we have to.
But I do want to be clear that, you know, what I said last time is that if we have that kind of impasse, I mean, you know, commissions are at the pleasure of council. So it still needs to come back to us to resolve that. So I realize that we're, you know, a little bit behind the 8 ball or whatever. I mean, I also have heard that, you know, from constituents that they knew about these discussions with Xylem like weeks ago before the 7th. And so, you know, it would have been great if council could have acted on it sooner. So I think we're moving forward. You made the connection. You followed up. I'll go wherever we need to find pond rakes. I'll like drive and like buy them if we can get it together by the 11th. So let's move forward with, I believe strongly that staff needs to talk to Xylem before this happens. Like it, you know, it would just be very unclear to me, like, you know, we got to get that process going. And so I think the weather is going to hold up so that, you know, if we can't get it by Friday, we'll get it done. So, so I'm going to feel confident about that. And I guess I'm also just going to say, we got to move on. Like, you know, again, we don't have anything in writing in the packet once again. And so, yeah, I don't want to keep on having these discussions, but I'm glad to see that we're starting to move forward. The other thing I do want to emphasize, though, is like when we're talking about having a long-term relationship, that means the entire village team needs to be part of that. So, okay. Yes.
Sure. Just I know it's been an awkward thing, but there's a bunch of good stuff here.
Yeah.
Just to say, like, there's a bunch of good things going on. People are trying to figure this out. There's some, it sounds like a good partnership with a strong entity in the community. So the thing, it seems like what we're hearing is if we could all work, and I think your energy the last meeting or your words was clear. Like any of us, if we're bringing stuff forward, if we have a thing, we try to put it in writing, that we try to communicate with staff to try to make sure there's enough time. Because I think that's, I'm hearing like, hey, if it's feasible to get these contracts done and signed by the 11th, great. If that's like a really big challenge, then I don't think anybody's trying to like make a big push anyway. So just to say, it's been clunky, but I think we're close here. Like we're close to being able to communicate and work through these things in a good way. So I hope people don't like walk away from it entirely as though there's not. This sounds like really good work with it to make a partnership, try to figure out a solution, starting to get people talking that haven't been talking. Okay, I just want to try to say something positive. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay,
I think that's great. That's one thing. I think it's honorable that you want to maybe go drive around looking for pond rakes. But I think, Mary, if you said Amazon or somebody, you could hit a button and they'll be here in a couple of days.
Well, yeah, but we have to have permission to do that unless I just buy them by myself.
Do we have a dollar amount?
Well, if we had 5, it would be $750.
Oh.
I mean, we shouldn't be buying things until we have a plan to, so anyway, so we'll be able to get our pond rakes.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on the manager's report?
Well,
Yeah.
so I think, was it on the last month's agenda to do? So did we get did we get the broadband update? Was that the one did we do that last time or did we skip that? Wasn't it on the notes that we were going to get like a more sort of like a thorough broadband update?
Yes, and my hope was that we were initially shooting for Wednesday to have our first live connection.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen.
So cool. I'm looking forward to that. That's all. So just to say, if we can make a note that it'd be great to have that next time or the time after, whenever it's convenient.
We will, and just brief update on that. We have communicated with the 90 or so residents that already have fiber next to their house about next steps and making that installation. I think there were a few cases where some residents want a particular way of running the fiber that we got to work through.
Hypothetically, there are residents like that.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're working through those things. We're also in conversation with the Chamber of Commerce about a free internet service that's being made available through business development funds that are available at the community foundation. So we expect to have word this coming week on where that grant application is for the downtown businesses as part of COVID business relief funds. So those are part of the updates that you should be on that will be included when we're live and we want to put out a complete update. It's been challenging getting this off the ground.
Right. Okay, and we'll have there's a pro forma that we'll put in the packet too.
Yes.
Jessica?
Bringing the left.
I'm not reading it. Just referencing. Jessica Thomas, Yellow Springs News. Josue, I know that we have been talking for a long time. I just wanted to ask if you could address Denise's letter that was included in the manager's report about the
Violations.
let's say exponential increase in reporting of violations, and what that means for cost of staff time, and what your thoughts are on addressing it.
Yes, okay, so a couple of things on that. I really would like a council agenda item on this because one thing that is clear from Denise's letter is that our numbers have increased exponentially. And we're really passing this threshold where this light touch decriminalization piece, it's just not gonna work. The second letters, all those light touches are cumbersome and they just require so much. I think that we need to have a facing. Are we going to issue citations and deal with this like other communities deal with it through an inspection service? And we hire people that get paid to just do these inspections, and the way that they get paid or we recover those funds is through the fines. You have to find people to do those things.
So I think the report's very clear. So I guess just a question, is council interested in having an agenda item to talk about changing our?
If it could be referred to the Active Transportation Committee. Does that make sense? Because it's coming out of safety of both sidewalks and, the rationale is we're making sidewalks safe for people to use and that we're making intersections safe. So so in that regard, it's.
Okay, so that still, I guess, begs the question of, does council want the Active Transportation Committee to review this? So, Mary Ann, you're interested in looking at this?
Well, what do you think, Josue?
I think I don't want to dismiss the work that's gone into it. In that citizens group and individual groups, but I think that there are some value issues that we need to address, and there are some tangible capital challenges that we need to address. So sidewalks repairs, they're not funded. We don't have the revenue stream to take care of it all. And also the complaints, some of them are grounded on legitimate concerns. Others are a matter of perspective. Whether their flowers are in the way, yes, it's a technical relations that the flowers are in the public right of way. There's been numerous of those. Do they rise to the level of citing people into mayor's court?
But do you think it makes sense for the active transportation committee?
But this is, I mean, but still, I'm going to interrupt because it really is going to be a policy issue,
Yes.
right? So, I mean, we heard earlier that we don't want to like be doing enforcement around busking. So, I mean, I think council needs to give a sense for, is this an area where we want to beef up enforcement? So, I mean, it is.
I mean, that's not the question. The question is, well, I guess it's a question though. I don't think it's something we're going to answer tonight.
No, correct.
Except whether we're going to pursue it. So, I mean.
Well,
Yeah, I say yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's enough to say.
I mean, yeah,
we'll
just
do
to be clear, yes, I think we should talk about this more. Denise's letter was thoughtful. Not the, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's enough.
Yep.
I mean, we don't.
Not right now.
We haven't like talked about it, like, so.
So, okay, I heard a different conversation. Is that part of the meeting?
So Carmen.
No, I
Yeah.
I don't think that Mary Ann's question was answered. And then we just kind of moved right over it.
Well, the Active Transportation Committee has already been talking about it, as Mary Ann knows.
we have
So I
not
think,
talked about this issue though.
yeah, we started talking about enforcement. So,
Can I address your question though? Because I know sort of where Denise is coming from. If council were to say, continue to enforce violations on a complaint-based basis and on a priority basis, and she were to continue to receive 150 violations in a month, she would probably deem 140 of them non-safety issues. And maybe 10 of them would get addressed, and that would be within her wheelhouse. Right now, however, what you have is the demand that every single violation be actively addressed and followed up on and cited, and all of the whole bailiwick. So if you put it back to staff to say, you are empowered to determine priority and safety issues, go forth. You would not need to involve active transportation because staff are quite able to determine safety issues with regard to sidewalks.
Okay.
and the reason why I interrupted was because I was at the meeting where we talked about prioritizing. So we actually have already been dealing with it. So, anyway, so I think that, I mean, we're bringing back recommendations. So, all right. And it sounds like council wants to talk more about it. Okay. All right. So old business, the budget session number 1 was great. And we have a schedule for a budget session number 2 in front of us.
Yes.
Make sure to change the times from 5 to 7. And I also want to thank Johnny for being great around just kind of, letting us dive into priority questions, as well as Chief Burge for her presentation, which I know if all council members haven't watched it, that they will watch it. Mary Ann and I were in that active transportation committee meeting for an hour and a half, which is why we weren't there. But I know that Kevin and Gavin were there asking good questions, and we'll be following up on that. Finance committee. So there is a very solid memo about addressing what we talked about at the last meeting with permits for vendors and some changes that need to be made. So if you're supposed to pay taxes, you do. If you don't make enough money to pay taxes, you won't. So the question is, does council want to move forward with this?
I had a question about it. It seemed to read that if you make the product, then you don't have to register.
So the recommendation is to take that away.
Oh.
Because it's ambiguous, like the tie-dye guy, at Nippers, probably they have something to do with their product, but that's part of the, I guess, recommendation or discussion is to remove that exception.
If there's a question, should that work continue? My answer is yes.
Right. I mean, this is just, yeah, do we want it to continue? And remember, the idea is that if these folks are permitted, then Rita can send them the information about their tax obligations. What about the rest of council?
Yeah.
Continue? Okay,
I see this as different than the buskers, so, and I go, yes.
okay. All right. Well, I think that's enough to say we'll bring back something.
Oh, excellent.
On the agenda, because I agree it should continue.
Okay.
Okay, new business, committee structure proposal. Finance committee has been going very well. I think that the committee on committees was ready to drop a proposal and one council member pulled it back. And that council member is not sitting at the table, but I think that it's very worthy. So the question is, do we want to make this an agenda item?
I would like to do that.
I think it would make a huge difference in efficiency for our meetings.
I mean, I had also thought of it be a work session.
Yes, I like that.
I think we need a subcommittee to review all of those documents and get a coherent proposal back together to put in front of council. And maybe then a work session, but I don't like the idea of everybody starting out reading old documents and trying to scramble their thoughts together. So.
Well, I would be interested in working on it.
Okay. Anyone else
Part of the
interested?
team.
I would, yes.
Okay, I love that. Mary Ann, Kevin, what were you gonna say?
No, I was making sure I'm supportive of the subcommittee, not the agenda item, if that
Cool.
works.
All right, love that. Okay, so Gavin, it's you, public safety work session.
The agenda was in the packet, the proposed agenda. It's truly open to feedback. I was gonna, offer if folks have feedback on council, also open it up to, I did meet with Chief Burge prior to, putting the agenda together and talk through the main components. This way, and I've talked about not the specific agenda, but we've talked about some of these concepts before. And put it out to the public also. If people have, feedback or questions, certainly open to that. I don't know what else. Basically open to questions or thoughts, but I will say, I really hope that people will come prepared. And that means doing the work of watching the YouTube video, if you haven't already, of pages explanation of the budget, is I think it's extremely useful in terms of understanding the context for some of this stuff. And then if it wasn't super clear, I think it was clear, but if it wasn't super clear, just to say, my hope is that we're kind of doing like a straw poll on some of these issues. So it doesn't mean we're coming and voting on stuff. It's like, is this kind of like we just did a minute ago of like, do you think this is worth time? So we're not going to like vote to merge the departments or something, but if there's enough interest in it, then we would start thinking about how do we work on that over the next, frankly, several years, I would assume, in that case. But if there's not enough interest, frankly, from a majority of councils to even pursue some of these things, then I doubt we would spend any time on it. So I hope folks will like do some thinking, talk to constituents or whoever it would be that you might want feedback beforehand for an initial kind of straw poll. And then my expectation would be that this will be essentially ongoing work moving into 2023.
Well, I appreciate the thoughtful work on the agenda. I think it's very clear. And are there any other questions or comments?
Well, I watched the video and I had a hard, because the numbers are so small, I couldn't really follow that. I felt like, okay, I'm getting this general idea of what she's saying, but I'm not able to see the numbers, so it's not computing down at the granular.
You mean you don't have the you don't have the spreadsheets?
Oh, no, I haven't looked at it yet.
Okay.
But what would be, there's been a something put out, I think it was Matt Ruska put out, comparing how much we pay per person, I guess, a police officer, compared to some area towns. And we're much higher than the other small towns. And it would be very helpful to me for the chief to be able to say why that is so. So that's not just the financial thing. And I could go in and talk to her, but that might be something that we could have her discuss, or at least put it maybe some background material.
And related to that, I did ask Matt for other data around destination towns, right? You know, like, I don't know that we are comparable to a Cedarville, for example. So there is some data around that to kind of expand that analysis. So I like that too. Okay, any other comments?
So just to say, I will talk to Chief Burge about, I told Chief Burge I would follow up around prep information, if that's okay. Josue, I'm happy to talk with you too. Whoever it is appropriate to talk with to make sure the prep information and things like that get at least brought up, and if not addressed directly, there can be some documentation afterwards or something.
Certainly, let's work together on this.
Okay.
I think what Brian is getting at is an apples to apples comparison. I wonder how many bars Cedarville has. Actually, I know how many. So there are other elements that go into why we have the police department that we have. I think some of it you've seen it in the report today, out to the extent that our personnel goes to. So let's connect on that, Gavin, and we'll connect with the chief.
Great. Any other comments? Okay, well, we did get back on time, and I know a couple items kind of got a little bit long. Future agenda items.
So I've got the emergency version of solid waste coming back,
Yep.
treasurer coming back, sidewalk enforcement, potentially broadband update, investment policy doc, and vendor registration. So that may move, but that's the list.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Well, then we'll say good luck to the boys soccer team on Wednesday. I'm sure they are going to kick butt. And we'll be efficient with our meeting on Wednesday. And if anybody does want to drive up to Marysville, I heard Josue is taking us. So, all right. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Vote, people, vote.
I already did.
Vote.